The unexpected proposition in the neon-lit streets of New Astra, a city that never slept. The hum of flying cars filled the air. Towering skyscrapers stood like giants, casting long shadows over the crowded alleyways. The people here were busy, rushing from one place to another, their faces a mix of hope and worry. Among them was a man, an ordinary man, who had just finished a long day's work. He was tired, his back aching from the constant hours in the office, but he was used to it. His name was Alex, and his life was simple. He worked in a small tech company, fixing old machines and making sure they worked like new. He didn't have many friends, and his social life was practically non-existent. But Alex liked it that way. He didn't mind being alone. He had learned to be independent and keep to himself. That night, as Alex walked home through the bustling streets, he noticed a woman standing near a corner cafe. She was staring at him, her eyes intense, almost as if she was waiting for him. Alex paused for a moment, feeling a strange pull, but then shrugged it off and kept walking. "Excuse me, sir," a soft voice called after him. He turned around to find the woman now standing directly in front of him. She was stunning tall, with smooth, pale skin that seemed to shimmer under the city lights. Her hair was long, silver, and flowed like liquid metal. Her eyes were a bright blue, almost unnatural in their intensity. She wore a long, dark cloak that seemed to blend with the shadows, but her presence stood out like a beacon. "I'm sorry to stop you," she said, her voice calm yet urgent, "but I need your help." Alex took a step back, wary. "Help? I think you have the wrong person." The woman shook her head. "No, you're exactly who I need." She hesitated, her gaze darting nervously around the street. "I know this is strange, but I need you to pretend to be my husband." Alex blinked in surprise. "What?" "I'm being hunted," she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If they find me, they'll take me. They'll hurt me, maybe worse. You're my only chance. Please, just pretend to be my husband for a short while. I'll explain everything later, I promise." Alex wasn't sure what to make of it. He had heard of people running from danger, but this felt different. Her eyes weren't just desperate, they were pleading. And something about the way she spoke made him believe she wasn't lying. "Look, I don't know what you're talking about, lady," he said, stepping back, "but I can't help you. I don't know you, and I don't get involved in other people's problems." The woman's face fell, and for a brief moment, Alex saw something he hadn't expected: fear. True fear. She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't have anyone else. You're the only one who can help me. If you don't, they'll take me. They'll kill me." Alex hesitated. His instincts told him to walk away. This was crazy, and he didn't want to get involved in anything that could put his own life at risk. But then he looked into her eyes. Again, there was no deception in them, only raw vulnerability. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Lyra," she replied quickly. "Lyra, Starling." Alex thought for a moment. He was alone in the city, just trying to make it through another boring day. Could he really turn his back on this woman who seemed to be in so much distress? He looked around the street, his mind racing. If he said no, what would happen to her? Or, "Right," Alex said, sighing. "I'll help you, but just so we're clear, this is only for tonight. I'm not signing up for anything long-term." Lyra smiled, a brief flash of relief in her eyes. "Thank you. You don't know what this means to me." "Okay, so what do I need to do?" Alex asked, still unsure about the whole situation. Just come with me, she said. We'll go to a place where it's safe for now. I'll explain everything once we're there. Alex followed her down the dark alleyway, his thoughts racing. Who was she really? Why was she in danger? What did she need from him? He had no answers, only a growing sense of unease. As they walked deeper into the city, Alex's mind kept wandering back to her face. The fear in her eyes had been real. She was clearly desperate, and somehow he had found himself wrapped up in her world without even realizing how it happened. But what Alex didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The moment he agreed to help Lyra, his life would change forever. He was about to be drawn into a story far bigger than he could have ever imagined. A story that would lead him into a dangerous game of secrets, lies, and betrayal. And it all started with a simple request: pretend to be her husband. Hidden truths as Alex followed Lyra through the maze of New Astra's winding alleyways. His mind buzzed with questions. Where was she taking him? Who was after her? And why had she chosen him, of all people, to be her fake husband? None of it made sense. But the look in her eyes, the raw desperation, kept him moving forward. The city around them pulsed with life. Neon signs flickered in every direction, casting colorful glows on the wet pavement. The sound of distant chatter and the hum of hovercars above filled the air. But despite the busy streets, everything felt eerily quiet to Alex. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Lyra led him to an old, seemingly abandoned building tucked between two towering skyscrapers. The entrance was narrow, almost hidden in the shadows, and the door creaked open as she pushed it gently. The inside was dimly lit, with broken furniture and old machinery scattered around. It looked like a place no one had used in years. Is this where you're hiding? Alex asked, his voice tinged with suspicion as he glanced around. This is where I've been staying for now, Lyra said, her tone low. She glanced nervously toward the door, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. It's safe for now. She motioned for Alex to sit on a dusty couch in the corner of the room. The air smelled musty, and the only sound was the occasional drip of water from a leaking pipe above. As Alex sat down, Lyra took a deep breath and finally spoke, her voice shaking slightly. I need to tell you the truth, Alex, about who I am and why they're after me. Alex raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. He had known something was off from the start, but now it seemed like she was finally ready to reveal what had been hidden. I'm listening, he said. Lyra paced the room nervously, her eyes flicking to the windows as if she expected someone to appear at any moment. I wasn't always in this situation, she began. I used to have a family, a normal life, but that all changed a few months ago. She stopped and turned to face him, her eyes filled with a sadness that Alex hadn't seen before. I'm not from here, Alex. I'm from another planet. For a moment, Alex just stared at her, unsure of how to respond. He had thought she was strange, but this was something else entirely. What are you talking about? He asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and concern. Are you saying you're some kind of alien? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. I come from a planet called Eloria. Our people were peaceful, but there was a war, a terrible war. My family, we escaped the destruction, and we found refuge here on Earth. But we were hunted. My family, they were taken. And now, they're after me too. Alex couldn't process everything she was saying. Aliens, A war. It was too much to take in, and yet something in her eyes made him believe her. Why would they want you? He asked, his voice softening. Lyra's face darkened. Because I know things that could destroy them. Destroy who? The people who caused the war, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The ones who destroyed my planet. The ones who are here, on Earth, pretending to be human. Alex leaned forward, his heart racing. Wait a minute. Are you saying that there are aliens people living here on Earth, right now? Lyra nodded grimly. Yes. They've been hiding in plain sight. They've infiltrated every part of society. They're the ones who created the war, who took everything from me. And now they want me dead, because I know their secrets. Alex sat back, his mind spinning. The world he had known, his simple, ordinary life, was being torn apart. None of this made sense, yet he couldn't deny the fear in Lyra's voice, the urgency in her eyes. So, what does this have to do with me? He asked, why did you come to me? Why ask me to pretend to be your husband? Lyra took a deep breath. I needed someone who wouldn't be suspected. Someone who wasn't connected to the world they know. They've been watching me for months, Alex, and they've been looking for someone to get close to me. You're the perfect cover. If they think we're married, they'll think I'm protected. They won't come after me, not immediately. But what happens when they figure it out? Alex asked. What happens when they find out it's a lie? Lyra's eyes flashed with a mix of fear and determination. Then we run, we fight. But you need to understand, Alex, this isn't just a game. They will stop at nothing to find me. And if they get me, I won't survive. Alex sat in stunned silence, trying to absorb everything she had just told him. Aliens, a war, a family, destroyed. It all sounded like something out of a science fiction novel. But the fear in Lyra's voice was real, and the danger was real. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Alex said, his voice heavy with doubt. I'm just a regular guy. Lyra stepped closer to him, her face softening. You're stronger than you think, and I'll protect you too. We have to do this, Alex. There's no other choice. For a long moment, Alex looked into her eyes, torn between the life he had always known and the terrifying unknown she was dragging him into. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man trying to get by. But now, somehow, he had become part of something far bigger than himself. And as the shadows of the city stretched long into the night, he realized one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. The chase begins. The city of New Astra hummed with activity, but for Alex, the night had taken on a new, terrifying meaning. The streets felt colder now, the neon lights too bright, casting sharp shadows that seemed to stretch and bend unnaturally. Lyra had been telling the truth. He could feel it deep in his gut, but he couldn't shake the nagging doubt that had started creeping in. This wasn't just some strange request anymore. This was real. This was dangerous. Alex and Lyra had barely settled into the abandoned building when Lyra stood up abruptly, her eyes darting toward the window. She had been silent for a while, her fingers twisting nervously round the hem of her sleeve. They're coming, she whispered. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Who? What do you mean, they're coming? Lyra's face was pale, her lips pressed tightly together as she walked toward the window. Her sharp eyes scanned the street below, looking for something, anything. I felt them, she said, her voice barely audible. I knew it wouldn't be long. They've found us. Alex stood up quickly, his mind racing. How do you know? Who are you talking about? Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned, her face full of fear. I don't know how. They track me, but they can sense when I'm close, when I'm weak, and right now, they know I'm here. They've been watching me for too long. A chill ran down Alex's spine. The air in the room seemed to thicken as he tried to make sense of what was happening. What do we do? Lyra rushed toward a dusty metal door at the back of the room. We leave. Now I'll explain everything as we go, but we can't stay here. They'll be here any minute. Without waiting for a response, she pushed open the door and beckoned Alex to follow. He hesitated for a moment, glancing around the abandoned room, but then he grabbed his jacket and followed her out into the dark hallway. The building's corridors twisted and turned, and Alex had no idea where they were going, but Lyra seemed to know exactly where to lead him. They passed old machinery and broken down rooms, each one darker and more ominous than the last. The silence between them was deafening, but Alex could hear the sound of his own heart pounding in his chest. Lyra, he said, his voice low and urgent. Who are they? Who's chasing you? What do they want with you? Lyra slowed her pace, her eyes flicking nervously toward the back of the building. They're not just anyone, Alex. They're from my planet Eloria, the ones who destroyed it. They're soldiers, mercenaries, sent to hunt down anyone who knows the truth. They want to erase us, to silence us. And she paused, swallowing hard. I have the key to stop them. That's why they want me dead. Alex felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. She wasn't just being hunted for some random reason. She was carrying the weight of her entire planet's survival. The pressure must have been unbearable. He wanted to ask more, but before he could say anything, Lyra stopped abruptly, her body going rigid. Stay quiet, she whispered, holding her finger to her lips. Alex froze, his body tensing. He could feel the tension in the air, as if something invisible had shifted around them. Then he heard its footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the corridors. Alex's heart raced as the sound grew louder, closer. Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a darkened corner of the hallway. We can't let them see us, she murmured. If they do, it's over. Alex's mind was racing. Who were these people? How had they tracked her so quickly? He could hear them now, their footsteps nearing the hallway they were hiding in. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He held his breath, praying they wouldn't be discovered. The footsteps grew closer. Alex dared not move, barely even blinking, as the shadows passed by just inches away. He could hear the faint hum of technology in their boots, a buzzing sound that seemed to vibrate the very air around them. Whoever they weren't human. There was something unnatural about them. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps finally faded away, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. Lyra breathed a sigh of relief and pulled away from the corner, her eyes scanning the dark hallway. They're gone for now, she said quietly, but Alex could tell she was shaken. We need to keep moving. Where are we going? Alex asked, still trying to catch his breath. To the safe house, she replied. It's not far, but we have to hurry. We can't risk them finding us again. As they continued through the building, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every step they took felt heavier, like 1,000 eyes were on them. Lyra kept her pace quick, her expression tense and focused. She didn't seem to notice the growing darkness in Alex's thoughts, but he couldn't stop wondering just how much danger they were really in when they finally reached a small door at the end of a narrow hallway. Lyra quickly punched in a code, and the door clicked open. She ushered Alex inside before entering herself, locking the door behind them. The room was small and sparsely furnished, with only a few old chairs and a table covered in old maps and papers. Lyra immediately went to a corner of the room and began pulling things out of a hidden compartment. Alex stood still processing everything that had happened. The chase, the footsteps, the feeling of being hunted. It was all too much to take in. But Lyra's calm presence kept him grounded. She had survived this long. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance to escape. "We can't stop running, Lyra," said, her voice tense as she sorted through her belongings. "They'll keep coming for me. They won't stop until they have me." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of her words. This wasn't a simple fake marriage anymore. This was survival. For both of them. A glimpse of the past. The room was dark, its only light coming from the flickering screens scattered across the table. Alex sat on a worn-out chair, his hands resting on his knees, still trying to digest everything he had learned over the past few hours. They were hiding in a safe house, one of many, Lyra explained. But it didn't feel safe at all. The walls, thin and cracked, seemed to echo with the heavy silence of the city outside. The danger was real, and it was closing in. Lyra paced the room, her steps light but filled with purpose. Alex couldn't help but notice the way her movements seemed to betray the strain beneath her calm exterior. There was something else going on, something she hadn't told him yet, and he was starting to feel like he was drowning in unanswered questions. "I need to understand more," Alex said, breaking the silence. "You've told me bits and pieces, but it doesn't make sense. You said you came from another planet. You said they're hunting you. But why? What do you know that they don't want anyone to find out?" Lyra stopped pacing and turned to face him, her eyes softening for the first time in what felt like hours. She took a deep breath, the weight of everything pressing down on her. "I never wanted you to be a part of this, Alex," she said, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "But now that you're involved, you deserve to know the truth." She walked over to the table, brushing her fingers across a small device before activating it. A holographic image flickered to life in the middle of the room, faint blue lines forming the shape of a distant planet. The image was shaky at first, but as it stabilized, Alex saw it. A planet, beautiful, serene, with sprawling landscapes and clear oceans. But as the image zoomed out, it changed. The once vibrant world was now a wasteland. Fires raged across its surface, and the sky was dark with smoke. The destruction was catastrophic. "That was Aloria," Lyra said quietly, her voice filled with sorrow. "My home." Alex stood up, his eyes locked on the hologram. "What happened?" "A war," Lyra replied. "A war we couldn't win. My people were peaceful, Alex. We didn't want conflict, but there were those who saw our way of life as a threat. The ones who destroyed us, they were not just from my planet. They were from all over. The war wasn't just a fight for survival. It was an agenda to take control of everything, our resources, our technology, our knowledge. They wanted to destroy our way of life and replace it with their own." She paused, as if the weight of the words was too much for her to bear. "I didn't want to believe it at first, but the truth is, they were already planning the war long before it started. And when they launched their attack, we had no chance. It was over before we could even fight back." Alex's mind was reeling. It sounded like something out of a science fiction novel, but the image in front of him, Aloria's destruction, was as real as the room they were in. Who are these people? Why would they do this? Lyra turned away from the hologram and walked to the window. They've been hiding in plain sight for years. The ones who started the war, they're not just from another planet. They've been living on Earth for centuries, blending in with humans. They've infiltrated every major government, every corporation. They control everything. They are the ones who run this planet from the shadows. She spoke with such conviction, Alex almost believed her. The more he learned, the more he felt like he was stepping into a world he never knew existed. And you're the only one left who knows the truth. Lyra nodded slowly. I was part of a resistance, a group of people who fought against the invaders. My family was involved too. But we were betrayed. The enemy had spies everywhere. My family was taken, one by one. They wiped out the resistance, leaving only a few survivors. And now, I'm the last one. The only one left who knows how to stop them. Alex felt a lump in his throat. She wasn't just fighting for her life. She was fighting for everything, the future of her people, her planet, and now, the future of Earth. And he was caught in the middle of it. So what happens now? Alex asked, his voice filled with urgency. How do we stop them? How do we fight back? Lyra turned toward him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I don't know yet, but I do know this. They won't stop until I'm gone. And the longer we wait, the stronger they become. We need to act, Alex. We need to find the last piece of the puzzle, the one thing that could turn the tide in our favor. Alex's head was spinning, but he couldn't deny the fire burning inside him. He had never been part of anything bigger than himself, but now he was. Now, the fate of entire worlds rested on his shoulders, whether he was ready for it or not. We'll do whatever it takes, Alex said, his voice steady. You're not alone in this. I'll help you. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. Then she nodded. Thank you, Alex. You don't know how much that means to me. As she walked over to the table and began searching through a pile of documents, Alex's thoughts raced. There was no going back now. They were in this together. And whatever came next, he would stand by her side. But as he watched Lyra, a new question arose in his mind. If they were to defeat this enemy, would they even be able to return to any sense of normalcy? Or would they both be forever marked by this war? The answers would come soon enough. But for now, they had a mission. Nothing would stop them from completing it. Betrayal. The air in the safe house was thick with uncertainty as Lyra sorted through her things, looking for something, anything that could help them. The weight of everything that had happened was finally starting to sink in for Alex. He was involved in something much bigger than himself now, and the reality of it all was hard to ignore. But he knew he couldn't turn back. Not now. He leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, watching as Lyra carefully examined every item in her pack. He could see the fatigue in her eyes, the exhaustion that came from constantly running. But she was determined he could see that much. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was something deeper, something personal. What are we looking for? Alex asked, breaking the silence. Lyra didn't look up immediately. She paused for a moment, then finally spoke. I need the device, the one that holds the information about how to stop them. The device, Alex repeated, furrowing his brow. What device? Lyra turned to face him, her expression grim. It's the key to everything, the only thing that can destroy them. I was supposed to hand it over to the Resistance, but it's too dangerous. If they find it, they'll use it against us. We have to keep it hidden at all costs. Alex nodded, but he didn't fully understand. It was hard to wrap his mind around all the pieces of the puzzle. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was a part of this fight. "Do you have it?" he asked, feeling a strange weight in his chest. Lyra's eyes flickered with hesitation. She nodded, but there was a hesitation in her expression that Alex didn't like. She quickly returned to searching through the pile of documents on the table, her fingers shaking ever so slightly. "I'll find it," she murmured, almost to herself. "It's here somewhere." As she searched, Alex noticed something strange. Her movements, which had been purposeful and sharp, suddenly seemed hesitant. The urgency that had filled her earlier had waned, replaced with something Alex couldn't quite place. He took a step forward. "Lyra, are you okay?" Lyra's hand froze. She didn't turn to look at him right away. Her voice, when she spoke, was low. "I need to tell you something. Something important." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach. Something was wrong. The calmness in her voice, the way her shoulders were tense, made him uneasy. Wasn't just the mission. It wasn't just the war. There was something more personal, something that was about to change everything. "What is it?" he asked, his voice tight with the anticipation of what was to come. Lyra finally turned, her face pale. She wasn't just scared, she was conflicted. The woman who had been so sure, so determined, now seemed broken, like she was carrying a burden too heavy for her to bear. "I can't do this alone," she said, her eyes meeting his with a sadness that almost shattered him. "But there's something I didn't tell you. When I asked you to pretend to be my husband, it wasn't just because I needed protection. There's more to it than that." Alex felt his heart race. "What do you mean?" Lyra took a deep breath. She walked over to the table and grabbed a small device, a sleek, black object, the size of a cell phone. She held it out to him, her hands trembling. "This device," she said, her voice breaking. "It's not just the key to stopping them. It's the key to saving my people. But it's also the key to my family's death." Alex blinked in confusion. "What do you mean, your family's death?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away, forcing herself to stay composed. "I never told you everything about my family. The resistance wasn't just made up of strangers. It was my father, my mother, my brother. We were all part of it. But when we were betrayed, when my family was taken, I didn't just lose them. I lost everything. And now I have to make a choice." She stepped closer, her hands shaking as she held the device out to him. "I've been running, Alex, not just from them, but from myself. Because if I give you this device, if I let you help me, then I'm giving up everything. My family's sacrifice won't matter anymore. They'll be lost forever." Alex stood there, frozen, unsure of what to say. Her words felt like a punch to the gut. The weight of her confession hit him hard. He had known she was running from something, but he never imagined the depth of her loss. Her family wasn't just gone, they were a part of a much bigger, far more dangerous game. "So, what are you saying?" Alex asked quietly. "I'm saying that I've been lying to you," Lyra whispered. "I've been pretending that I can handle this on my own, but I can't. I've been using you, Alex. I asked you to be my husband, not just because I needed protection, but because I was hoping you'd help me carry this burden. But the truth is, I don't know if I can ask you to do that. Not after everything that's happened." Alex felt the anger rise in his chest. Betrayal, the word echoed in his mind. He had been part of this from the beginning, thinking he was helping her, and now he was learning that he had been nothing more than a pawn in her game. a pawn in a war he didn't understand. But even through his anger, he saw it her fear, her pain. She wasn't doing this to hurt him. She was doing it because she didn't know who else to turn to. She had been through too much. And now, here, they were on the edge of something that could destroy them both. "No," Alex said firmly, his voice steady. "You're not alone in this. I didn't come into this just to be a part of your plan. I came into this because I believe in what we're doing, and I believe in you." Lyra stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise. She had expected him to turn away, to leave her. But instead, he was standing there, willing to fight by her side. "You don't have to carry this on your own anymore," Alex continued. "We'll find a way to fix this, together." Lyra's face softened, and for the first time, Alex saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "You're really willing to do this?" He nodded. "Yes, I'm with you, Lyra, no matter what happens next." For a moment, the two of them stood in silence, the weight of the decision settling over them. Lyra finally handed him the device, her hand still trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. As Alex took the device from her, he knew that things were about to get even more dangerous. But he also knew that he wasn't alone anymore. And together, they might just have a chance to change everything. The escape plan, the safe house, felt even smaller now, the walls closing in with every passing second. The tension between Alex and Lyra was palpable, but as the hours stretched on, a sense of urgency began to replace it. They couldn't afford to linger in this place much longer. The enemies she had been running from were getting closer, and as much as Alex wanted to ask more questions, he knew they didn't have the luxury of time. Lyra paced the room again, her movements sharp, her eyes constantly darting to the window. Alex watched her, noticing how different she seemed now. The walls she had built around herself were finally starting to crack, and he could see the vulnerability that had been hidden beneath the bravado. But there was something else to determination. Her mission wasn't over. She had come too far to give up now. "We need to leave," Lyra said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed the urgency of the situation. "We can't stay here. They'll find us if we do. We need to get to the drop point." "Drop point," Alex repeated, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" Lyra nodded, walking over to a table where a map of the city was spread out. She placed a finger on a location near the outskirts of New Astra, small, hidden area near the river. "This is where we can catch a transport to the underground resistance network. They're waiting for us. They've already made arrangements, but we have to move fast." Alex leaned in, studying the map. "You're telling me there's a whole underground network here in the city, and I had no idea about it?" Lyra met his gaze, her eyes flashing with a mix of regret and resolve. "You wouldn't have known. They've kept it secret for years, but we don't have time to explain it all now. We need to go." "Okay," Alex said, swallowing his doubts. He didn't know if he was ready for what lay ahead, but he couldn't back out now. He wasn't about to let Lyra face this alone. How do we get there without being followed? Lyra's eyes flicked toward the window again, and she lowered. Her voice will take a back route. It's hidden, but it's risky. There's a chance we'll run into some of their patrols, but it's our best shot. Alex nodded. Let's do it. Lyra grabbed a few essential items from the table, some supplies, her communicator, and the small device she had been holding. "On to, we can't afford any mistakes," she muttered, mostly to herself, before looking up at Alex. "Are you ready?" He didn't hesitate. "I'm ready." Without another word, they moved swiftly through the house, gathering their things. and making sure they weren't leaving anything behind. Lyra led the way, her steps quick and deliberate, while Alex followed, trying to ignore the growing unease that settled in his stomach. They moved through the darkened hallways of the building, the city outside glowing with its usual artificial brilliance. But Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up his spine. They were stepping into the unknown. They were running, and they didn't know what would come after them. When they reached the back door, Lyra paused and looked at Alex. "Stay close. Don't let them see you." Alex nodded, his muscles tense, his senses on high alert. Lyra opened the door, revealing a narrow alleyway that led to the back streets of New Astra. It was quieter here, away from the bustling crowds, but it also felt more dangerous. Every shadow seemed like it was hiding something. The two of them moved quickly, blending into the darkness as they followed the alley. Alex's heart was pounding in his chest, and the cold air bit at his skin. He had never felt more alive, more afraid. There was no going back now. As they rounded a corner, Lyra stopped suddenly. "Wait," she whispered, pulling Alex into the shadows. "I hear something." Alex strained his ears, but all he could hear was the distant hum of hovercars and the occasional footstep echoing in the alley. His nerves were on edge. Had they been spotted? Were the mercenaries close? Then, out of the silence, a voice broke. "Through, did you hear that?" Lyra's eyes widened, and before Alex could react, she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward an old maintenance hatch in the wall. It was hidden beneath a pile of discarded crates and debris, barely noticeable. In the dark, without a word, she yanked the hatch open, revealing a narrow stairway leading underground. Alex didn't have time to question her. He followed her without a second thought, descending into the cold darkness below. They didn't speak as they moved deeper into the underground tunnel system. The sounds of the city above faded, replaced by the steady echo of their footsteps on the metal steps. It felt like they were miles away from everything. Lyra led them through the maze of tunnels, her pace unwavering, but Alex could sense the tension in her. She was watching every corner, listening for any sounds that might signal danger. He could tell she wasn't just running for her life anymore. She was protecting something bigger, and he had no idea what it was. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lyra stopped in front of a large metal door. She looked around quickly, ensuring no one was watching, before entering a code into the keypad on the wall. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a small room with a few people inside: engineers, technicians, and a couple of armed guards. Lyra stepped inside first, and Alex followed closely behind. The room was quiet, but the moment they entered, everyone's eyes turned toward them. The tension in the air was thick, but Lyra didn't seem fazed. She walked straight up to a man standing near the far corner of the room. He was older, graying hair at his temples, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "We're here," Lyra said quietly. The man nodded. "Good, you made it. We've been expecting you." Lyra turned back to Alex, her expression a mix of relief and determination. "This is it, the last step." Alex glanced around the room, his mind racing. He had no idea what was coming next. But one thing was clear: they were only getting deeper into this, and there was no turning back. The final showdown, the small underground room hummed with a strange energy, its dim lighting casting long shadows on the walls. The people inside moved silently, their eyes flicking between Lyra, Alex, and the door, as if they were waiting for something. There was an unsettling stillness in the air, but Lyra's presence seemed to command the room. filling it with a sense of purpose. Alex stood off to the side, his mind racing. They had made it this far, but everything still felt uncertain. The last few hours had been a whirlwind discovering Lyra's past, her family's destruction, the device that could potentially change the fate of both her world and Earth. But now, standing in the belly of this underground resistance network, Alex felt a new weight on his shoulders. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was the beginning of the end. Lyra turned to him as if sensing his unease. She walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light but grounding. "You did it," she said quietly, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "We made it this far, Alex. Together." He nodded, but his thoughts were still heavy. What now? What's the next step? What's waiting for us? Lyra's eyes darkened, and she glanced toward the man who had greeted them, the older man, with graying hair and sharp eyes. He stood near a terminal, tapping away at the screen with quick, deliberate movements. "We go after them," Lyra said. "We finish this. We end the war." Alex felt a surge of adrenaline in his chest. It wasn't just a plan anymore. It was happening. The war that had taken Lyra's family, the war that had brought them here, was about to reach its final chapter. The older man looked up from the terminal and nodded toward a door in the back of the room. "We've intercepted a communication. The enemy knows you're here, Lyra. They're preparing to move against us. The moment you entered this base, they began their countdown. They're coming." Lyra's face hardened. She had expected this. She had known it was only a matter of time before the final confrontation arrived. "Do we have a plan?" Alex asked, his voice steady, though his heart was racing. He had no experience in wars or battles, no idea how to take down an enemy this powerful, but Lyra had already brought him this far. He wasn't going to back down now. "We have a plan," the man said, his voice low but confident. "We'll hit them where it hurts." The man motioned for them to follow him as he led them through a series of narrow hallways. The resistance had been preparing for this moment, and everything was set into motion. A small team of highly trained operatives was already positioning themselves around the city, ready to strike at the heart of the enemy's control. But Lyra, Alex, and a few key members of the resistance would be going in directly. They arrived at a war room, a large, windowless room filled with maps, screens, and data terminals. The walls were lined with monitors, each displaying vital information about the enemy's movements, their forces, and their strategies. Everything was in place. This was it, the final fight. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes scanning the information with practiced ease. "This is our target," she said, pointing to a large compound marked on the screen. "It's the enemy's main base of operations, the heart of their control here on Earth." She turned to Alex, her expression steely. "We're going in. You've made it this far, and now it's time to finish it. You ready?" Alex looked at her, then at the resistance fighters around him, all armed and ready. He didn't know if he was ready for this, but the fear that had gnawed at him before had faded. He wasn't going to let Lyra face this alone. Not now. Not after everything they'd been through. "I'm ready," he said, his voice unwavering. Lyra gave him a brief nod and turned back to the team. The older man was already giving orders, his voice calm and clear. "Alex," Lyra said, turning to him one last time before the team mobilized, "I know this isn't what you signed up for, but I'm glad you're here, and I don't think we could do this without you." Alex swallowed hard. "No more running, huh?" "No more running," she said, her lips curling into a small but resolute smile. "We fight, we win. The room erupted into movement as the team gathered their gear and began making their way toward the exit. Alex followed Lyra, his pulse quickening as the weight of their mission settled in. There was no turning back now. The streets of New Astra were quiet, the usual noise of the city muted as the group moved through the shadows. They didn't speak as they walked, each step bringing them closer to the enemy's stronghold. Alex kept his focus on Lyra, following her lead, feeling a strange sense of calm despite the chaos surrounding them. They reached the outskirts of the compound under the cover of night. The building loomed ahead, guarded heavily by enemy forces. It was their last chance to put an end to everything, the last chance to stop the mercenaries who had caused so much pain. "Stay close," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of distant machinery. "We move fast, we move." Together, they infiltrated the compound quietly, taking down guards one by one with precise, silent movements. Alex couldn't believe how efficient the resistance was, how quickly they moved without making a sound. Every corner they turned, every door they passed, felt like a test of their skill, their resolve, and their ability to survive. Finally, they reached the central control room, where the final confrontation awaited. Lyra stood at the door, her eyes locked on the control panel inside. "They're here," she said quietly. "This is it." Alex's heart pounded in his chest as they entered the room. The enemy leader stood at the far end, his back to them, surrounded by a handful of heavily armed mercenaries. The moment the door slammed shut, the leader turned, his cold eyes locking with Lyra's. "I knew you'd come for me," he sneered, his voice low and menacing. "But it's too late. You'll never stop us. You're just one woman. And he glanced at Alex with contempt, is just a fool who thought he could save you." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady and powerful. "You took everything from me, but now it's over." The final battle began.